Three, two, one. Emma.
Hello.
Glad for you. Oh, I'm honoured to meet you, and happy for you to be in the hot seat in the podcast chair. Thank you for joining me.
No worries. Thanks for having me.
No worries. How are you today?
Good, thanks.
Nice. Black coffee.
Yeah.
Only black, no milk, no sugar.
No milk. Yeah. It's just something I started doing a few years ago. I started drinking black coffee and kind of got used to it, that when I drank milky coffee, I was like, oh, this isn't that great. But I do like, if we go to a cafe to have breakfast, I'll get a cappuccino with an extra shot and extra chocolate. That's the only way. It's the only way I'll drink coffee with milk is like lots of chocolate on top.
Nice.
Yeah.
So you're not doing any intermittent fasting that you have to restrict your milk?
I eat a pretty standard diet, but black coffee is just one of those things that I went to and people are like, do you do it for any reason? I'm like, no, I just like it. So yeah.
I'm not sure. I can do espressos and like long blacks or whatever, but long black's a little bit dark.
Yeah, I think I just got used to it. Sometimes I'll get some milk in there, but pretty rarely. If someone put milk in it by accident, I'll just drink it. I'm not that
Wouldn't
fussy.
ruin it? Wouldn't ruin the coffee for you?
Nah, because I worked at a cafe for quite a few years, so I don't want to be a difficult customer. But then it just depends what mood I'm in. I'm like, well, no, if I ordered what I ordered, I want what I ordered.
Yeah, so. Well, it's funny because I used to work at Macca's as well, and there's a little bit of an appreciation of how difficult it is to do that sort of stuff, especially you have to deal with customers who are like Karen and pain in the ass.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. Yeah, I'm like, you can go up to someone and be like, oh, I'm really sorry, it's okay, but I didn't order this. Yeah. But it's still if you're working on the coffee machine and someone comes up to that and it's like, well, you're not sorry, because if you weren't sorry, you wouldn't have told me. So it's one of those things. You feel so awkward doing it, but it's sometimes you're like, well, I just want what I ordered.
Yeah, of course. Well, before we get started in the conversation, just give the listeners a little bit of a background, like a 2-minute, 1 minute spiel.
Okay, probably closer to 1 minute. So my name's Emma. I'm a 400 metre and 800 metre runner. More so 800. So 800 is my main event on the track. I'm a former pole vaulter. So I competed at a World Youth Championships and 2 World Juniors, or 2 World Under 20s is what they call it now. So 2017 I kind of transitioned out of pole vault, went back to my running, and like I mentioned to you earlier, finally can beat my 14-year-old self over an 800, but starting to run some good times, putting me kind of competitive with those over East. And I'm a strength and conditioning coach, got my level 2 ASCA accreditation, and also just a running coach as well, working out of Front Runner Sports in Wembley.
Wow. 800 metre running must be the most painful experience. I could barely get a 200 metre running, 800, an extra 600 metres on top of that must be the pain. How hard is it to get through an 800 compared to a 400?
Yeah, so I people used to say 400s is the hardest event just because you produce so much lactic and you got to get to the finish line. But now that I'm an 800 runner and I run 400s off the back of my 800 fitness, I actually really like the 400 because I'm fit. So I'm probably not producing as much lactic as all the other 400 runners running a 51 second, because I'm not running that fast. So I actually like the 400 now because it doesn't feel that hard because I'm fitter than when I was running it a couple of years ago. But yeah, 800 is different again. It's, 2 laps and it's almost like 2 400s rather than a nice easy 2 laps around the track. It's, you're pushing the limits with the lactic, but you have to run an extra lap. So you kind of get to 600 meters. Actually, for me, it's I get 300 meters into the race and I'm like, oh my gosh, I still have 500 meters to go.
Right. It's almost like if you got a package coming in the mail, it's going to hurt. But if the pain comes early, you're in a world of hurt for the last couple of laps or the last lap, I guess.
Yeah, so you kind of get to that. It's for everyone, it's different, but I get to 500 to go and I'm like, I haven't even got halfway. And then I get to 400 to go and I'm like, all right, 1 lap to go. And then you got it once you get to 600. So once you got 200 to go, it's like the last rep at training. It just sorts itself out. But you have to get to 600 without blowing up. And I beginning of the season, we were playing around with my racing a little bit, and I ran maybe like a second quicker through 600 than what I was used to. And I still finished the last two and ran a PB, but because it was like a second quicker over that first 600 meters, I like blew up with lactic. I was shaking after the race. Like I couldn't walk. And then I like had a lactic spew and like it was horrible. But yeah, and that was only like a second quicker than what I was used to. And my body just responded so bad. And then like a month later, I ran a 3-second PB and I felt fine. Just, it's so crazy in terms of like, I don't know, some day, I guess I might have been off that day or something, but I was so like, after that, I was like, I never want to do that again.
Did you do something different during the day? Did you eat something different? Or?
Well, I ate my lunch too late. So I kind of got home from work and I was rushing around and I ate lunch. And as I finished my lunch, I looked at the time and I was like, oh, that's a bit close to race time. But I think it was just that. But then also just that lactic production was like insane and I've never felt like that.
How long did it take for you to kind of recover after that? It was a couple of hours?
Oh, well, yeah, it took me like an hour or maybe like half an hour where I was feeling pretty crap. But we have like I do a cool down anyway. So by the time I started like moving around and jogging, but the worst thing to do after an 800 or after a hard session is lie on the floor and not move. And that's what I did. But as soon as you start moving, you feel better. Yeah, right. But it takes a while to get to that point of wanting to move. So
is there a limit on how many 800s or like I guess because obviously in track and field you can do multiple events on a race day or a competition day, right? Is there a limit to what you can do? Like if you do many 800 meters, go off and do other events after that?
I think so. Once you kind of get to a certain age, I guess you kind of pick your events. So like on a Friday night, like there's two programs they kind of like rotate between every second Friday. So there'll be an 800 every second week, but on that same program there'll be like a 200 and a 3K or something like that. Okay. So unless you want to, like, I could always back up a 200 with an 800. An 800 with doing a 200 after. But it's not really like you kind of look at it now. Like if I was a younger athlete, I'd go, do a 200 after. Some of the girls that I coach at Front Runner, they'll do a 1500 and then back it up with a 400 because 1500 is their main event and they're just trying to get a bit of speed. So they will just jump in and do a 4 and because they're younger too. And they're still doing like some little A's and stuff. Whereas like I'm 24, so for me doing a 200, there's not too much value to my training. You could argue that maybe a little bit of speed might be worth it, but when you're looking at an 800, you're going to get your speed from a 400. Right. And I don't do much work out of the blocks, and running a good 200 is like a lot to do with the start as well. So me coming out of the blocks is pretty ugly, and I don't do any work with it, so it's not really like it's nothing that I focus on. So yeah, potentially I could do a 2, but it's kind of like you kind of look at like what you're going to gain from it. If anything, I might do like a threshold 10-minute kind of run after a race, just to top up, because obviously when you compete, your sessions might be 5-6 Ks worth of work, but when you compete, it's cut right down to like 4 Ks. So just getting a little bit of top up by going and doing a couple 200s at the grass track after, which I can't say I've done that much because I kind of race and I'm like, done. But wow. Just a couple of times this season after a 4, I've gone over to the grass and done like a 10-minute kind of threshold workout just to top up, so I'm not just running a 400 and going home.
That's interesting because we, back in the footy club I worked with over in Adelaide, we did something similar. We had a trial game, and it's one of those trial games that was only one side was playing, so it was like a mix of league and reserves players playing. So we had a really large squad. So our game data was lower than what we expected. So we said to the guys, look, we're playing, it was a Friday afternoon game. Yeah, Friday afternoon, evening game. But we have to go and do top-up running after the actual game you're playing because you're not getting enough running into meet our like loads for the week. So they were like not happy, but
they're like, what? I just played a game of footy.
And after the whole other team and all the like supporters who came to watch the trial game left, and we were out there just running 1 minute laps after the end. And that's the thing. Like I think
obviously you working in strength and conditioning and me having a background in strength and conditioning, but then you do so much study around training load and all of that. And that's the biggest thing this time of the year is losing fitness because you're racing too much.
Yes.
So because your session, which is now a competition, becomes, 3-4 Ks less than what you've been doing at training if you were to do a session. So, you can it's a really hard kind of thing. Like you got match fitness, same with footy. So you got race fitness with athletics. But yeah, that idea that if you race too much and you start to lose your fitness because you're racing too much, like you might be getting good at racing, but it's just like finding that balance between racing enough. And I think that's what me working with my coaches this year, we've kind of found that balance between like not racing every single week because we don't need to, like doing a couple 400s here and there. But if 800s are my focus, it's like at the start of the year, we really picked what ones we were going to do. And a lot of them we just did on the back of training. So not freshening up for any races, just doing a full week of training, throwing a race in, seeing how we respond.
Yeah.
And then, we race on a Friday night at sometimes like 8:45. And then it's like, all right, see you training tomorrow at 7 a.m. So not too much rest, but kind of like, not feeling the need to freshen up for every single race.
Yes.
Because, and it's a really hard one because you feel like you should. But when they're just local comps and you're just trying to get a few races in this time, a couple months ago, so like through that November, December period, it's just about getting on the track. You're never gonna feel great, and if you feel crap at nationals, like if you're heavy or you feel like you haven't tapered well enough, you're not gonna not race. So it's kind of like practicing, like even though you might feel crap in the warm up. It's like, well, you still got to run because if you feel like this at nationals, you can't just bail.
Right.
Oh, I don't feel good. Like I'm not running. So it's almost like getting around that mental side of things as well. My coach is always like, just be aware of how you feel in the warm up and then just run. Whereas I'm the opposite. I'm like, well, if I feel bad in the warm up, but I don't want to acknowledge that I feel bad because then if I run bad, it's because I felt bad. But when I ran my first PB, I felt terrible. Like before the race, I felt like I was going to pass out. Like it was so late and I just felt tired and lethargic. But I think that as well is almost a good thing because then I took pressure off myself. I was like, I feel like shit.
Yeah.
And I'm just going to run. Like I'm still going to run, but I feel crap. And I ran a PB and I was like, oh, there we go.
Yeah. That happens a lot of times. Like there's that old adage of saying the worst workout is the one you've never done. You always, no matter how hard or how bad you feel, you should just kind of get into start moving. You generally get the cobwebs out and you feel better.
Yeah, and it's like I reckon every session, I don't reckon I've ever felt good in a warm-up. Like you warm up and you're like, oh, I feel so bad. And then you get into your session and you're like, oh, it's all right.
Yeah. Well, then you never know. Like something might happen in their session. They might actually, because I do a little bit of martial arts training as well. So some, like usually after long days, it's just real drag to kind of get in. But because I don't really know what the sessions entail, sometimes there might be some sparring. I might end up just getting the group. Like you just kind of get into a groove sometimes. You just kind of feel a bit better, work through it. It might be some good pad rounds. You might just get in and it just feels good, even though everything else on that day was just shit.
Yeah.
One of the questions you was talking about then, the competitions for athletics, they're regular, but you don't have to compete at all of them. Is that right? And you can kind of pick and choose which ones are priorities.
Yeah.
And then you can kind of base your scheduling off that.
Yeah. So in Perth, they used to be called senior comp, like seniors, but it's called Strive. So our Strive comps are every Friday night throughout the year. Wow. From October until March. So over that kind of summer period. So it just gives an opportunity because obviously the younger athletes still have their little athletics on a Saturday morning. Yep. So it gives the younger athletes an opportunity to run with the older athletes, to run with people from outside of their club region at little athletics, but then also us older athletes who are too old for little athletics. So it's like, it's just like a weekly competition that's run they rotate through 4 different programs. But every second week there'll be an 800 and then every second week there'll be a 1500 and a 400. So kind of on the like alternating kind of rosters. So yeah, given my event's 800, I'll do like an 800. I could compete every week if I wanted. Like there's no restrictions, and I could do an 800. I could do long jump, and I could do a shot put. So I can do whatever I want. But you kind of tend to go there and do the events that you're focusing on or you're training for. But yeah, it's really open to anyone. Like anyone could go down and register for a club and compete if they wanted to. Because it's essentially, it is community sport. So as long as you're registered with the club, you just go down, you compete. And then there's obviously like there's like groups of athletes that will just stick to their own events. But then there's others that will come down and do a few different events just for fun as well. So
what club do you race with?
So I compete for UWA, so UWA Athletics. And yeah, so I've been with them for, I don't know, 6 or 7 years.
Right. And do you come, so I assume you did little athletics?
Yeah.
And then once you kind of age out of that, is that when you go to a club and race with them?
Yeah, so I did my little athletics in Kingsway, so north of the river. So I was there from under 8s, I think, all the way through. It goes to under 17s. Some little athletics clubs don't actually have senior clubs to then transition to. So I went from Kingsway. I was pretty fortunate because I was running. I was doing 800s and 400s at that time as well. I was already competing at Strive comps before I was out of my little athletics. So I kind of had that smooth transition that lots of people don't have in athletics, because some people will just do little athletics all the way through to under 17s and then have to find a senior club to join. And then when you go to Strive comps on a Friday, all your heats are seeded. So you could be in a race with someone who's like 10 years older than you and 5 years younger than you. Like it's just because they just seed all the heats. So it can be quite daunting for younger athletes coming up who go there and are used to running in their own age group and then go and have to race people that are like 10 years older than them. Like you're like, oh my gosh. But
does it make it daunting for you? Like if you kind of get whispers that a young fire starter is coming up and you have to race against them, you're like, oh gosh, don't know what's going to happen here.
Yeah, I
never really had that.
Yeah, well, I think when I was competing as a young athlete at Strive comps doing the 4s and 8s, I was that young athlete. Like I was like, you know, a few years younger than some of the other girls, and I was mixing it with like those girls being older than me. But then roles kind of got reversed when I went into pole vault, then came out of pole vault and went back to running. I think my first 800 back was like, I was the oldest in my heat and I always complain that I'm old at athletics because I was the oldest in my heat by like 8 or 9 years. And I was like, oh my gosh, and they're all going to beat me. Like, but I think you kind of get used to it. You know, Strive's always been one of those things that is just everyone's chucked in the same thing. So you don't really like take too much notice of like ages as such, unless you look at the start list and you're like, wow, these girls are so young. Because there's some fast girls going around at the moment and they're all like pretty young. But yeah, I think you just get used to it.
You mentioned your transition to pole vaulting at the top of the podcast and just then. Can you explain the process, how that kind of came about?
Yeah, so it would have been 2017. So after my last World Under 20s, which was 2016. But from a period from about 2015 probably to 2017, I just wasn't really enjoying the sport. And when you spend a lot of time training for something, and you know, I was at uni part-time, I was working part-time, and pole vault was like the focus. And our coach was pretty strict on that. Like, don't do full-time uni, don't do full-time work. Like we're training this time, like we train at 10 o'clock and do 4-hour vault sessions during the day. So it was very structured, and I loved it before, but I think I got to that point where I felt a bit trapped in that situation. Like I was enjoying uni, but I was doing uni, and I've always been someone that's been really busy. So I always do like a billion things, and that's how I operate. But yeah, kind of having someone say like, no, like you can't do this, you can't do that, you have to do pole vault. It was like, I want to do pole vault, but I want to do it like I want to enjoy what I'm doing.
Yeah,
so I
understand, yes.
Yeah, so I kind of lost that enjoyment a little bit, and I was struggling a bit mentally. Pole vault's one of those events, like it's so technical, and so I kind of like I struggled to like take off, and I was having a few issues with like body image. Being the sport it is, power to weight ratio is really important, and there was quite a like when I look back on it now, a very unnecessary focus on looking a certain way, being a certain weight, having certain skin folds.
Right, interesting.
So that pressure as well didn't really work for me. So I dealt with a few like mental health struggles along that time, and I just was really hating it. And it actually took my brother to go, like, I think because being such a niche sport, and there was only like 2 of us in WA that were going. Like Nina and I, we went to World Youth, and the next year we go to World Juniors. It was just because we were so dominant in an event because there weren't that many competitors. But yeah, it took it like, and I think because we had success in that event, you can't. I don't think we took it for granted, but you know, it was kind of like it's just what we did. So we'd go to comps and we'd go over East and we'd go to nationals and we'd do well because there was only the 2 of us and a few others floating around like that were really quite competitive. So yeah, I just got to the point where I was just not really enjoying it. And I was talking to my brother about it, and he was like, do you even like it anymore? This is just like in the kitchen at home. He's like, do you even like it anymore? And I was like, yeah, of course. And he's like, no, like, do you want to do it? Do you like it? Do you enjoy going to training? And I was like, no. And he's like, what the hell are you doing? Yeah. So that, like, having someone else kind of put that in perspective for me, I was like, wow, like, you know, like it's your identity and that's how everyone sees you. That's how you see yourself. And because I was that person for so long, it took me a long time to kind of go, it's actually okay to put that aside, like go do something you want to do, be happy, enjoy yourself again. Because I was training like every single day and I didn't want to go training and I was hating it. I was training by myself and I was just like, I just need a break. Yeah, so sure. Yeah, within a week I went to my coach both my coaches, and I was like, I want to have a break. Like I just not loving it. And it was really hard to make the decision, but yeah, made the decision. And then ever since then, like I've just never looked back. So I know it was the right one.
Yeah, of course.
But when I think about it, my initial choice to do pole vault over 800s, because I'd say that those 2 events for me were on par when I was a junior. So under 15 or under 16s, I think was my last national 800, or under 17s maybe. I'm not sure, but one of the 2. I was on par with both 800s and pole vault, that I was at a point where my coaches like needed me to choose. And that was like the year we were going to World Youth, like the first year we had that opportunity to go compete internationally. And I potentially could have gone for 800s if I wanted to. But me choosing pole vault was like, well, I can't go back to pole vault. I can't have like a 5-year stint off and decide that in 5 years' time I want to do pole vault. Whereas like if I want to come back and do 800s, I know that I probably can. So yeah, that was kind of a big part of my decision making, and look where we are. I'm like,
well, yeah, because you couldn't go the other way around. You couldn't just go 800 and then go to pole vaulting, because it's so technical and you have to learn so much. Your body, you have to maneuver your body around a pole. You have to be able to sprint fast, and it's like almost like gymnastics in the air. You try not to get impaled by a stick on the way down.
Yeah, so that's what drew me to pole vault is like our training was we'd do 1 gymnastics session a week. We'd be in the gym, we'd be sprinting, we'd be doing long jump, lots of plyometrics and things like that. And then obviously the jumping component, which was just so fun.
Like all very multifaceted.
Yeah.
Just the whole.
It wasn't just like, all right, what are we doing today? We're running. What are we doing tomorrow? Oh, we're running. So I think that's what drew me to.
Oh shit!
That definitely drew me to pole vault. And obviously I loved it. And so I was like, I may as well give it a crack. Mm-hmm. But Mum tells me a funny story that we actually got. So it would have been like state relays 2009, I think, when we got identified as pole vaulters from Little Athletics. So there was like a group of us that, they obviously saw us running and were like, oh, they've got good speed or they've got good technique or something. Like we think they could potentially be a good pole vaulter. So that was kind of how we got into pole vault. We got a letter in the mail maybe a month later being like, come try pole vault. We're doing come and try day. We identified you at state relays. And I've gone, oh my gosh, this is so funny. I was like showing Mum. She's like, you're going to go, right? I was like, no, are you kidding? Like, why? Like, why would I go do pole vault? Like, I'm running. Like, I love my running. I'm not going to bother like with pole vault. Mum's like, oh, you think you'd be silly not to go? And I was like, I'm not going. Like, don't be stupid. And then And then I look back now and I'm like, I'm kind of glad I went because I wouldn't have got all the opportunity. Well, it was likely that I wouldn't have got the opportunities that I did get with it. So
I think I definitely would have jumped at the opportunity to get away from running.
Yeah.
As much as I try to get into the running, it's just always that feeling you just have to run.
It's so self-driven as well because you can just stop. You're like,
100%. That's why when I do my running, I always try to, like, I set out, like, when I do like aerobic speed running or like interval runs, I always have to set the cones out because I know if I have to reach the cone and get back, or I do time runs like minute on, minute off, it's easier to get myself through because I know there's that period to stop or turn back or to run to like the cones. That it's hard. It's just to be like, it's hard. I'm going to stop. Like I can't go for 5K straight runs.
Yeah.
Like, because I just know by the third K, I'm like, oh, this is shit. My feet are sore, my calves are burning. I can't run anymore. My back's jacked up. And there's no more of that.
Yeah.
As an 800-meter run, do you do running over the 800-meter distance, like for thresholds or?
So our kind of general training week, Mondays will be one of our hardest sessions. It's generally some longer reps on the grass track, but working on that 800 kind of pace. Tuesday I'm in the gym. Wednesday's our track session. So it's where it's like specific. So 800, we might do race models. We might do, any kind of distances at race pace. So less than 800. I think our session the other week was like 6 250s. So that was just like lactic.
And that's at the race. Pace?
So that session was at like more so 400 pace because we were just trying to sharpen up coming into states. But that Wednesday session has generally been race models. So, doing a 400, having 30 seconds rest, doing a 200, having 30 seconds rest, doing another 200. So that, sounds gross, hey? So that session, that's my favorite session because it's on the track and, I would say it's good fun, but it's not. But you feel good after it.
I know that feeling. I know what you mean.
You finish and you're like, okay, that was a good session. But then Thursday is just an easy jog. So it's just time on legs. So not really worrying about how fast you're running. I mean, it's you look at your watch and it beeps up like, 5:10 and you're like, oh, I wish I'm going under 5 minutes. But that run's more just like time at like 8, anywhere between 6 and 10 Ks for me, just depending on how my week looks in terms of comps and how much I've done before that. But it's just easy Ks. And then Friday will be either a competition during comp season or it will be like hills or threshold. And then Saturday we've been doing trail stuff. So, so like longer reps again, but on the trails just to take away from the track and bit of strength.
Trail running?
So we've got a little like loop that we do in Kareen. So it's like 830 meters and it goes path, trail, path.
Okay.
And it's like a little bit slopey as well. So it's
kind of change, a little bit of a mix type of.
It's like so it's like more specific than just doing, 800 flat on grass in a straight line kind of thing. So just getting that change of surface is like good for your feet and things like that as well. It's a bit softer. And when you run on the trail, you don't have, like if you're running 800 meters on trail, you don't have the idea of, oh, well, if I can run 800 meters on track at this pace, like, so you you take away and you go to the trails and it just becomes like.
Takes your mind away from
it becomes just like a non-specific, you're just running 800 meters on the trail and you're not really thinking about it. So, yeah.
So in a week, what are your average, like a normal standard week, what's your average distance?
Covered? So I'm probably at given my background coming through pole vault, I'd definitely be on the lower end of how many Ks I'll be covering compared to other 800 meter runners. So I'm probably doing, my watch says 38 for the week, but that's probably about 35, 36 maybe. So roughly, because that takes into account the slow walking between the horrible reps at sessions. But so that's probably the lower end for me. When I got up to 50, I was doing 50 a week, like a year ago maybe, and I got really bad plantar fasciitis. So obviously with 800 running, we do a lot of fast stuff on the track in spikes. So even like 30Ks, like 30Ks a week's like 3 10K runs, right? Like, and if you do those slow, you could probably do 5 in a week. But because some of our Ks are really high intensity and they're on the track, they're speed work, they kind of, well, I find for me, they kind of account for more than what they are. Like, I think if I was just doing long, slow runs every day, I could probably get my Ks up to a lot more.
Of course, yes.
But because they're higher intensity Ks, like my feet get sore, my back gets sore.
Much. Yeah, for the, I guess the volume of like the accumulative load comes down. Because we do this similar kind of theory down at East Rio, because we're going to do 2 trainings or field sessions a week, and the philosophy around it is we can get away with less kilometer total Ks in the week, but our high intensity needs to be higher to make up for that difference.
Yeah.
And there's no actual science around that. It's just more of a theory, because if we can go for longer at lower intensity, but that's going to take away from our intent. Like, you want to make sure that in a game we're running at high intensity.
Yeah.
Most sessions we're getting up to around 10Ks, but anywhere between 40 to 50% of it is at high intensity. So 18K an hour plus you go before off our GPS units.
Yeah.
So I guess that's kind of similar. Like, if you had a GPS model or GPS unit which able to track your speed breakdown, you'd have a lot more of your Ks would be upper and higher end of the speed zone, whereas if you were going for more Ks, it would be at the lower end.
Yeah, definitely.
It's high quality work.
Yeah, definitely. And I like, when a few years ago I was like, I'm going to be an 800-meter runner, and I was like, I need to be doing 50 or 60 Ks a week, and some of the guys over east and some of the girls as well, they're doing, like, one of the guys I know is doing like 100 Ks a week, but he's completely different because he's like has that longer distance kind of, he's always done that.
Okay.
But whereas like some of the girls are doing like, 50, 60, 70, whereas like for me it's like, because I've missed such a big period as a pole vaulter. So at the times that they were probably doing 30, 40 Ks a week, I was pole vaulting. I was doing like 4 Ks a week. Like, we did no running when we were pole vaulting because it was all like, sprint stuff. So we just didn't accumulate that much volume in terms of Ks. But again, it would have been high intensity stuff with pole vault because we did a lot of plyos, we did a lot of jumping sessions and things like that. But yeah, so for me, it's like the way I look at it is quality over quantity. So less is more.
Yeah.
So that kind of idea. But I still have my one long run in there a week. And just making sure that that's then low intensity is really important. Because if I get out there and try and run, 8Ks at 4:30s, that's what's going to get me injured rather than like the track work. But it's that easy run that now becomes hard.
Mm-hmm.
So it's really trying to play around with my load and my training sessions to make sure that my easy Ks are really easy.
Yeah.
And that, and that the sessions are good quality. Right. Even like warm-ups and cool downs, like some of the cool downs we do are like 7-minute crawls because like 7 minute per K because we're wrecked. But it's just about turning the legs over and recovering for the next session. So
yeah, I'm bad for cool downs. I'm hopeless. I'm just easy straight out of the gym back home. Get me out of there.
Yeah, I don't do much in the gym in terms of a cool down, but yeah, running sessions, I find if I don't cool down the next day or the next training day, my legs feel heavy. So
especially even after sparring, I'm even worse for it because I just go straight home. I should actually go either ice bath or sauna because in sparring, like you get knocked knees or like you somewhat like get leg kicked and that sort of stuff, and so essentially like corky in the legs.
Yeah.
As soon as I sit down, I got to stand up again. I should not have done that. That's bad.
Yeah.
Is there any like, I guess you were talking about the Ks in the week. Is there any like old school coaches who have this idea in their head that they want to hit a certain K certain total Ks each week? Like for AFL, there was a period where all the coaches, no matter what they were doing, they wanted to hit 50 Ks a week. Yeah. That was just kind of their number, like an old school number, and all the sports scientists kind of got them out of that. But it was a period where it was 50 Ks a week no matter what, and it kind of broke a lot of people down. Is there something like that similar in athletics?
I don't know. I think it I don't know too many. I don't speak with coaches enough to know if that's their kind of philosophy around it all. But I think it'd be interesting to know. But so my current coach has worked more with 400-meter runners and athletes. So she might put a cap on like session volume. Like we might not do more than oh gosh, I don't even know. We might not do more than like say 2K's worth of work in a session. And then that will slowly decrease as you go more into the season because again, like your intensity increases so that overall volume reduces. But yeah, not that I know of. I haven't really spoken to any coaches that have gone, yeah, I want my athletes hitting this. Because I think, it comes down to the athlete.
Yeah.
Like I'm doing 30 to 40 Ks a week and I'm running similar times to some that might be doing, 70 or 80 because we're just different athletes.
Yes.
So I come from, even though my roots is kind of like that endurance running, I did miss 5 or 6 years as a pole vaulter. So I'm probably, my training age for an 800 is probably 2 or 3 years compared to someone doing 70 or 80 Ks a week. Their training age might be 6 years. Yeah. So I might potentially get there in 3 years' time, but I can't manage it right now. So that's why I'm not doing it.
You need to enter transition back into the 800 meters. Was there a period where you didn't compete for a period because you had to kind of train up? You had to build up that tolerance to load in your training, or was it straight? We kind of managed your training in the week and allowed you to race on the weekends.
So I think it's likely that I did compete the end of the year that I first started back running. Or maybe it was the year after. I can't really remember because it's so long ago. So my coach is pretty keen on athletes competing.
Yep.
She's like a races, like especially when you're kind of new to it, I guess. She's like, racing's really important. You need to do it. You need to practice your race. You need to execute all those kinds of things. And she's kind of like, why would you train all winter and not compete? Like, why are you training with the squad and training 4 times a week and then not going to compete? Like, that's what we're training for. So she kind of had that mentality. So she just encouraged me to just get out there and run. And that was what I needed to find that passion again. So I was just like, you know what, like put everything aside. Like I'm just going to run, see how we go. And it gives you a baseline. So for me, it was like, all right, well, that's where I'm at. So that's good to know. But I don't want to run that slow. So it's likely that I competed the end of that first year or maybe the year after for the first time. But yeah, my coach was pretty keen on like getting us racing and, because then you can reassess training targets as well and you almost, improve a bit quicker.
And also you're dealing with the competition and getting used to the warm-ups, the call room, all that sort of stuff.
Yeah, definitely. And I think, like being able to execute a race, some people can train really well and can't execute. And some people can like be so slack at training, but are good at racing or just hold back and are good at racing.
That happens in athletics as well. It's not just team sports.
Yeah, I think so. It really comes down to the person. Like, some people like race and can smash you in a race and you can flog them at training and you're like, how does that work?
So it must be a mental switch or something.
I think it is, but I think it comes down to like how much you as an athlete can push yourself because training is so self-driven and it's so easy to go, I'm just going to run these easy. And you got your last rep wonders as well. So we'll cruise. And last rep, they're like bang and run 3 seconds quicker. And you're like, are you kidding? Like, and you run 3 seconds slower because you've blown up. But yeah, I think it just comes down to the type of person you are. For me, I'm like, don't leave anything on the track. Like I'll be like crawling on the floor to do my last rep saying I don't want to do it and I'll probably still do it. So,
Last rep wonder, that's a good one. I haven't used that term. We're going to have to use that now. There's a few that are out there. Like it's usually the younger guys coming up into the senior program. And then as we're doing the last set of the last couple of reps of the runs, all the senior boys kind of drop off and those kids run up and try to think they're really good. But
because they're like,
I call them sandbaggers. But
that's a good one too.
So in all that week, 38, 36 days, 38 Ks a week, where do you fit your gym program and how does that kind of look?
So I fit my gym. So Tuesday I don't run.
Okay.
So I do my one gym session on a Tuesday and then I do my second gym session on a Saturday usually. Right. And that'll be, I usually just like do my trail session and then go straight to the gym.
Okay.
But it just depends. Like now that I work on Saturdays now, so I do my running in the morning and then work, and then I do gym after, which is probably better for recovery anyway. Otherwise, sometimes if I, have something on, I'll do it on a Thursday afternoon. But yeah, but Sunday's my one day I like refuse to do anything. I'm like, I need one day off just to rest. I did run this morning in saying that, but that's because I didn't run yesterday. So usually I like to have that one day just to not do anything. Yeah.
And instead of having that mental break today, you're here talking about
athletics and
running.
Yeah.
So what do you do? 2 sessions a week? How does that kind of break up? Do you do total body splits? Is it power exposed, depending on the period of the year?
Yeah, so I'm really lucky. So my gym coach used to work at Wace, Greg Morgan. He did I think he did like rowing and kayaking programs. So he's a really good gym coach, and I moved across to him a few years ago because I was kind of doing my own thing. Once I left Wace, I was doing my own programs, and when you write your own program, you're like, I've missed that today. I'll do one less set of that. And at that point, I didn't have too much experience on, I knew what I kind of needed, but not too much experience on periodization and things like that. So I was just going to the gym and doing whatever. So I got in contact with Greg, and we've worked a lot together, and he's been really helpful. He really explains what I'm doing, which is good. And because and I'm always asking him questions. I'm like, why'd you give us this? Because I was studying it at the time. I was what's the point of this? What's the point of this? He probably gets annoyed with all the questions that I ask, but he's really good. So we've kind of got 2 full body type programs. We don't have too much upper body in there, but more just body weight stuff. So we'll do some chin ups or something like that. And I always ask him for chin ups in my program because it's the one thing that we did so much of when we were pole vaulting. And it's the one, it's the one strength that I never wanted to lose. I was like, I like that I can do chin ups. So I don't want to lose them. So keep them in my program.
There's something about being able to do chin ups, especially with weight, and you feel like.
And it's one of those things that if you can't do it, if you stop doing it, you'll probably lose it.
It's the first thing to go. It's weird.
Yeah. So I was like, I want to keep doing chin ups, but I'm like, no bench press, no bicep curls, no nothing. I was like, just chin ups. And he's like, okay. But yeah, we have a pretty good split of both. We've got our Olympic lifts in there, which I love. So we did a lot, doing a lot of gym stuff with pole vault. We did heaps of snatches and cleans through that. So we've kind of kept that going. But yeah, it's really just general strength. And I've done so much gym work across my career that for me, I didn't necessarily need to get any stronger being an 800 runner because I came from a power sport. So I actually have lost a lot of muscle mass in my upper body just because I'm not pole vaulting anymore. But also because 800 being more of an endurance sport, we've kind of tailored that a little bit in terms of programming, and we're not lifting super heavy all the time, but we're still getting our heavy lifts in there. And yeah, it's just been maintenance for me because I've come in when I was the 800 runner, I don't look like an 800 runner. I think I look more like one now, but I came from pole vault. So I came from a power sport, and I was a lot musclier than I am now. So for me, it was losing a bit of that mass, but still maintaining my strength along the way.
Is there a lot of work around injury prevention in the program? You're doing single leg, hamstring sort of hip sort of work as well to maintain that balance?
Yeah. So I've had really bad feet since I kind of transitioned, just that increase in volume of training. So we've got a lot of feet prehab work in there.
Oh, cool. What kind of stuff are you doing?
So one of my physios gave me toga, toe yoga.
That's interesting.
Yeah, so that when my plantar fascias are really bad, I was doing a lot of that stuff. So with the TheraBands, and moving the toes, but even just bare feet work. So the moving along the floor, scrunching towels and stuff.
Oh, okay,
and,
yep.
And the thing that saved my life was this thing called a fasciitis fighter. You know how you're meant to do calf raises on a towel if you've got you roll up a towel, put your big toe on the towel. Yep. It's one of those, but it's a foam pad. I do all my calf raises, most of my calf raises on that.
Yep.
So
that stretches out the
it just increases that activation of your feet muscles a little bit just because it's like stretching your big toe up. But yeah, so we do a lot of that, and then just general work. I'm not very good at doing my warm up in my gym work.
Never mind.
But the more that I've been working like now in strength and conditioning, like the more mobility stuff I do just every day in general, because I'm like in the gym all the time. So I go through warm ups, and I always do the warm up with like my groups that I have. So yeah, in terms of that, I could be better. I think everyone says that they can be better with their prehab and their rehab stuff. But I've been pretty fortunate, apart from having a few feet problems along the way with injuries. I think that just comes from having like general strength. Like I'm pretty strong, so like I've just been really lucky with, touch wood, not having too many soft tissue injuries and things like that. It's more been overused stuff. So plantar fascia, bit of like hammy tendon stuff, which has come from like just doing too much sprinting.
Vaulting days.
No, that wasn't so much vaulting. That was more when I was doing like some faster work and doing speed sessions. Back pole vault, we do speed sessions. We do like 4 30-meter sprints, and we're like, all right, go home, guys, you're done. Whereas now it's like your speed sessions might be like 5 150s. So that kind of intensity is like made me a little bit sore. But I've been pretty lucky with all the injury stuff.
No injuries in the pole vaulting?
I hurt my back.
Okay.
So I had a couple back issues. I had a facet joint sprain. Just because you take off and you lose your lower back. So my back's just a bit ongoing from that.
Okay.
I am really good at putting it into back spasms, like in the gym as a warm up, like picking up a really light bar to do a warm up set and putting my back out. I've done that a few times.
Shit.
Can't move for like a week.
Recently or?
The most recent time I did it was about April last year. And yeah.
Oh no.
But that was because I also tried footy, and I was really sore from footy, and I was going to the gym, and just put my back out, and I was in so much pain for like a week and a half. And now I like don't take not having a sore back for granted.
I know, but as soon as you say April, I'm thinking almost into March, almost June, so it's almost been.
Yeah, it's almost been a year. Yeah. So
touch
fingers
wood again,
crossed.
quick touch wood. A lot of athletes tend to say touch wood, and lucky I've got these chairs.
Yeah, perfect.
So you tried footy?
Yes. I loved it. It was so much fun. And like,
was that just a bit of fun, like on a week?
Yeah, so there was like 3 of us that went down from our running group.
Okay.
One of the girls was like, I'm actually going to watch them play footy today. So my friends Kobe and Jess, one plays for Clement, one plays for Subi now. But we were all at training, and we were like, do you reckon we should, like, Kobe was really keen. She's like, I want to go try footy. And we were like, oh yeah. And Jess is a really good soccer player. And I was just kind of there. And at that point I was like, my running was just, I was doing it because I was loving it, and I wasn't really too like 100% like full ball, like I'm going to do this and this and this. I was still like, running, but they were like, let's go try footy. And I was like, okay, yeah. And I told my partner, and he was like, nah, don't do it. He's like, nah, I don't want you going to footy. You're going to get injured. Nah. And I was like, nah, I'll be right. So anyway, after one of our sessions on a Monday, we went down to Wembley, and we just like went to training and had the best time. It was so much fun. And then so we started doing it, and I was like, I probably shouldn't play because I'm going to hurt myself. And I've got a really bad ankle from pole vault. So I managed to roll that in the first scratch match that I played.
Classic.
No, actually I rolled it. No, I first rolled it like when I was out and about doing stuff, just because it's so dodgy. So I rolled it when I was out, and then I rolled it a second time and did a syndesmosis at footy. And I was like, I think I'm done. And I did.
Did you have to have surgery?
Nah, so it turns out I'd done it before, and I was like,
what?
Yeah.
No, I never got.
Well, because I've got like no ligaments. It's like a golf ball in there. It's so fat, but like it's really like there's no lateral ligaments. So I know it's bad. So I had it taped anyway, and I rolled it through tape and everything. So I did a pretty good job.
Wow.
But yeah, at that point I was like, oh, well, if I want to focus on my running, I probably can't play footy, because like I was going to training and, and like playing, and you do contact stuff. And I was like, my shoulders were sore, and my coach was kind of like, look, I don't mind. Like if you want to do it, you can do it. But if we're going to look at next season, you can't expect to run really good times if you're going to play footy. And I was like, I'm just going to do it. Like I can do everything, which I can't. So so in the space of 5 days, my back was really sore from footy because I was like, because you're running, you're like sprinting at high speed, you're trying to bend down to pick up a ball, and my back was getting sore. And then in that scratch match, I managed to roll my ankle, and then 5 days later is when I put my back out because I was going to the gym because I couldn't run. So I went to the gym to do a gym session and put my back out. I like got home and I just sat on the couch and I was like, I think I'm done with footy.
Yeah. I have a bad track record on this podcast talking about syndesmosis because I had Phil Seth, who plays for Freo. We were talking, she's a physio.
Yeah.
And we were talking about all the syndesmosis we had in the previous season at East Freo. And then a couple weeks later, she ended up doing her syndesmosis. So let's touch wood again.
Mine was pretty minor, but when I first did it, I had like all this swelling here.
Oh yeah.
And I was like, syndesmosis.
So when you did it, was it you get caught?
Yeah, so I kind of got tackled as I like, it was like fully taped. There was so much strapping tape on it. So I'm surprised that I managed to roll it. But I had someone like tackle me at the same time. So it was like their body weight plus mine.
Yeah.
And straight away I like heard it pop and I was like, ooh. And I've like hobbled off. And it was the third quarter as well. Right. So it was like halfway through the third quarter and I was like, oh, I got so close. And my partner's just like, oh, did you roll your ankle? I'm like, nah, it's fine. He's like, told you so.
But you'd have been kind of the top tier in terms of the fitness. Like you've been able to cover the ground quite well, I imagine.
Yeah, well, I think I think I was playing on the wing, I think. But yeah, but that the Wembley team they won the grand final last year, the C1 grade. And yeah, because the three of us from athletics went, so I obviously stopped. But the other two girls being really good runners, just chuck them both one wing each and bang.
Because I always imagined that if there was going to be an athletics, like an athlete to come across from athletics, it would be someone in that 400, 800 meter range because that's that volume or that kind of intensity of the runs, but like at a repeated effort.
Yeah, I was surprised though. It was so hard. I thought I was fit going into it, but it's that stop start, 20 meters, stop, 20 meters, like 30 meters. Like it was, I thought I was relatively fit and it was such a different fitness playing it. Didn't help that the first scratch match we played was like a 38-degree day and we played at like 1 o'clock in the afternoon. But I was surprised like how hard it was in terms of the running because I thought I was like I'm pretty fit, like I can do 400, like whatever. But it's that repeated effort of like going really fast and having to stop and then change direction. I was no good at changing direction. I've done a straight line sport my whole life, which is half the reason why my ankle didn't hold up for too much of it. But doing straight line stuff and being like, I'm going to play footy.
Your groins,
recipe for disaster.
Groins didn't get sore or anything?
I got a sore hip flexor from kicking because I'm a lefty and I can't kick on my right. So and I've got no desire to try and kick on my right because it's crap. So I'm just like, I was just always kicking on my left foot. So my left hip flexor got sore. But yeah, it didn't last long. My footy career didn't last long. It's pretty not much to talk about.
Disappointed about it didn't go off? Didn't take off?
I made the decision to focus on my running and where I'm at now with that, it definitely paid off. I would have loved if I could do both. In an ideal world, if I could do both and do as well as possible in both, I would. But I'll happily play footy when I'm finished my running. Like it's definitely something that I go back and do because I loved it so much.
Yeah, I was so good. We went down and watched the game yesterday at East Freo, and I was saying to Casey, it's like almost bad, like just as bad playing footy in the summer than it is in the winter. Winter is like cold and miserable, but in the summer it's like you've got the whole day and you know that you're going to play in 31 degree a day, whatever it was yesterday, and it kind of puts you like the rest of the day is ruined because you get dehydrated, like you're going to be dehydrated from playing, and then you have to make sure you recover and do that sort of stuff. It just would suck. Yeah.
Well, that's the thing. Like it was, I thought about it all day. I was like, I'm going to have to make sure I hydrate and everything. Whereas I love it because sometimes we race so late at night. We might race at like 8:30, but there's nothing better than like a 40-degree day and racing at 8:30 at night because it's still warm. But the sun's gone down, there's no wind, and it's just perfect for conditions. But,
So going back to the pole vaulting, and you were talking about the strength to power ratio. You said you had trouble with body image and all that. What was the kind of the biggest the we had to kind of get over? Was like a mental kind of block on how you looked?
So we had a bit of pressure from coaches that we had to be a certain weight and be a certain skin fold measure.
Okay.
So there was a bit of pressure around that. And you know, some people are like, yeah, whatever. Like if you like, I guess in like a footy environment, it's like, boys, your skin folds need to be 60 or under. But saying that to a 17-year-old girl who's like in year 12 or in year 11 or whatever, being like, oh, you know, your skin folds, they need to be lower and your body weight needs to be lower. And I think at Waste, there's so many service providers around like physiology, dietitian, the coach, and the coach was kind of taking all of those roles and doing it all, which made it confusing because you had the dietitian telling you one thing, the coach telling you another thing, and you didn't really know who to listen to. So it was just a really difficult time for me. I struggled with being told that I had to look a certain way and be a certain weight and have a certain skin fold measure because I never had to think about that ever in my life. Growing up, I always did sport, always ate well, and then but it almost being drilled into you like don't eat this, you like overthink it, and then I just struggled. Like honestly, I just found it really hard to manage. Like I would weigh myself in the morning, I'd have breakfast, I'd weigh myself, I'd go to training, I'd come home, I'd weigh myself. Like it was really like, it was so much to deal with. And
so they took the freedom, like your freedom was taken away.
Yeah. And it's kind of what I mentioned earlier in terms of like you can't work full time, you can't uni full time, you have to do this, you have to do that. It was that like, you know, like not having the choice to be able to go, well, actually, I really like uni. I want to go full time. I'm still going to do all my training sessions, but I want to do that. You know, like we didn't have that choice. And it just became a really unhealthy environment for me. And it took me a while to realize, but I was such an unhappy person. Me and my dad are super close, and I like lost my whole relationship with my dad because he was like trying to get me out of a toxic environment. And I was just like, Dad, shut up. Like, would just ignore him. And because I knew he was right, but I was like, nah, like I'm not gonna. So Dad and I like struggled, and Mum was kind of always there. But I actually was with my dad the other day, and he's like, I feel like I have to apologize for the way that, you know, we didn't get on. But he's like, I was trying to get you out of there. He's like, look at you now. You're so happy. Like you're so this and you're so that. And I guess that's the one thing I think about now is how I felt back then. And it's the one thing, like, you know, I walked away from a sport that I loved, that I had success in. And so many people don't understand. They're like, what? You were good. Why'd you stop? And it's like, you have no idea. Like, you have no idea why I stopped. But it's like, for me, like the most simple way to put it is that if you're not happy, why are you doing it? You spend so much time doing something, training for something, working so hard. But if you don't love it, and you don't want to go to training, like why are you putting so much time and effort into something that actually makes you really unhappy? So I think, you know, it's what I kind of relay now to the younger girls that I coach. And I'm like, you have to love what you're doing, because if you're not loving it, then like, why are you spending so much time doing it?
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. It's interesting because I guess you probably didn't have someone like yourself telling you that when you were that age.
Well, and that's the hardest thing. Like, you know, body image in sport in general is such a big thing now. So many more people are talking about it. But actually me being able to look back on that time in my life, like I look back at it now and I can like see like where I went wrong kind of thing. But at that, like, there's no way that I was in that point in time going in 5 years time, like I'm going to see that I'm in a bad spot. You know what I mean? Like you can't really, like I can look back now and go, oh, wow, I was like, but I look back now and I go, how the hell did I turn out so normal now? Because like I was honestly, I felt like, you know, there was no coming back. Like I was, you know, I was really struggling. I wasn't, like I just developed some really unhealthy like eating behaviors and like weighing myself all the time. It's so mentally draining, and like, but that was normal because that's what I was doing at that point in time. But I look back now and I'm like, Oh my gosh, like and that's kind of why I guess like I'm so proud of where I am now, because like that however many years ago, 6 years ago, I was I was ready to just like not, like I was going to quit pole vault and do nothing. Like I wasn't, but you know, like I was so like, I just thought I was like stuck in that position. I was like, well, this is my identity. This is what I do. Like, I'm just going to have to work through this. But it wasn't until I realized that I needed to get out of that environment, that straight away getting out of that environment was just a step in the right direction. And then everything kind of came after that, like just being happy, enjoying what I was doing, having my own say over my own life, that I could go to training and work full time, or not work. I've never worked full time. That's a lie. But but like, go do stuff and go play footy. Like there's like when I was pole vaulting, like it was different again because I was in waist, but being able to have that opportunity to like try something, like I was playing social netball with my friends and doing all the things that when I was pole vaulting, it was like, you can't do this, you can't do that, you can't do that. And I just didn't realize, I guess, until when I reflect on it, and when I have reflected on it over the last few years, that like having that choice, like you're a much better athlete if you're happy.
Oh, 100%.
Like, and it's crazy, like, but it took so long to actually step away from my identity of being a pole vaulter to actually realize like it's okay. Like I don't have to be that person just because I have been for the last 5 years, and I can step away from something that I love because I'm not happy. Like finding that kind of, I think being okay with that took a while, but
we bring it up, or comes up a lot on the podcast from other different athletes, about being like having your identity tied to your being an athlete.
Yeah.
And sometimes it's okay for your identity to change, because a lot of people have issues with, or have trouble with being able to, that changing who you are is, and changing your identity. They have a lot of struggle with doing that. I guess one of the biggest things is it's okay to change your identity, but you're not changing who you are. It's what you're tied to.
Yeah, it's like it's not what you do. There's that saying. It's like it's not what you do. It's who you are.
Yeah,
it's who you are, or something. And that's when I actually heard that on Mojo Crow.
No, I don't.
He's oh gosh, he's on Instagram, but he's worked with like some athletes, and I listened to a podcast, and that was one of the things he said. He's like, I try and explain to all my athletes that it's not about what you do, it's about the person that you are, and you are that person, and that is just something that you do. Like what you do doesn't define you. So like, it was hard being like, I used to have people go, oh, you're that pole vaulter, and I'm like, no, not anymore. But yeah, it took a while, but I think that was my fear of like walking away from being a pole vaulter. But now I'm like, I couldn't care less. Like, yeah, that was part of my life now. Like, and now I'm not that person anymore.
You spoke about, it was that conversation that you had with your brother about stepping away. Was there stuff leading up to that point? Like, were you, doing your own kind of were you reading, or kind of getting a sense that you just step away? Or
so I got injured. So this ankle's given me so much trouble, but I think it was when I had surgery on my ankle. I was training by myself, like rehabbing. So I was just going into the gym whenever just to do my own thing. And I was just like, doing rehab by myself. Like my coaches had other athletes to worry about. So they were kind of like, you work, like you do your own thing. And which was fine, because at that point, like, there's always events around the corner, and it was like February. So it's almost middle of the competition kind of calendar. So, I was just doing my own thing. And, but yeah, I guess getting injured kind of made me like slow down. And because I was training by myself, and I was like, this sucks. And I think at that point I realized like I didn't actually have much desire to get back. Like I was like, what am I rehabbing for? Like I just started running. I was training. Like the exercise physiologist was doing my training sessions with me. She was taking me for my run sessions. She was taking me for sessions in the pool. she was, you know, helping me with my rehab and stuff. And I was kind of like what, like I can't even train with my actual coach.
Yeah.
And at that point, that's when there was lots of chatter around all the body comp stuff, like, and we're not allowed to vault until you weigh under 60 and your skin folds are 60. And it was a shit show, honestly, because I'm like, I have never been fitter in my life now and I don't weigh under 60. Like, you know what I mean? So like telling someone they need to be a certain weight when there's like like the last time I weighed under 60, I would have been like 15 in like year 10 or something, you know? So it's like, it's just, and me having a background in sports science, you go through nutrition. Yeah, I was studying at that stage. And I'm like, are you crazy? Like that is just not going to happen. And he's like, they're like, oh, you know, get in the gym more, do more gym sessions. And I look at a 10 kilo weight plate and I put on 10 kilos. Like kidding? Like if you want me to lose weight, I'll go running. But I couldn't run because my ankle was cooked. So I couldn't win. But yeah, there was lots of pressure around that. And I think getting injured and having surgery and having a bit of time away from the environment, I kind of realized that I was like, I don't think this is the right path for me. But I always loved my athletics. So I was never going to just stop pole vaulting and become a couch potato. Like I wanted to still do athletics because I loved it. So yeah, that's when I kind of made the decision to have a break from pole vault. And yeah, and kind of stepped away, but then still did running and started running and stuff like that.
Do you outsource like your mental health? Like sort of do you go out and research, do your own kind of listen to podcasts, do your own reflection, or do you go and sit down with the psych and talk?
Yeah, so I worked with a psych at Wace for a long time, and that like really, really helped me. And it wasn't until, so when I transitioned out of Wace, my psych actually left. And they were like, oh, as a transition, like you get this much psych work, this much dietitian stuff. And it was a new psych. And I was like, at that point, I was like, I was pretty good and I knew that I could reach out to my current psych and I'd kind of like been through enough that I felt like I was in a pretty good headspace. And I know that if I needed my psych, I could reach out to him, but I was like, I don't want to tell another psychologist my whole life story. And it was nothing against the psych. I was just like,
you get exhausted.
You get a relationship with someone and, you know, like I was seeing my psych every couple of weeks and we had a really good relationship and, you know, you kind of see them and then you just touch base and it's not like so what have you been doing over the last 5 years? Like sitting down with someone again and going through that, I was like, not happening. But at that point in time, I was pretty good. But then I know like mum was super supportive and dad as well. But yeah, I think I'm like lucky. Like I dealt with a lot of shit, but it was an environment that was like a trigger. So once I got out of that environment, I was actually like 10 times better.
Like a super high performance, like too tightly wound, like high performance sort of.
Yeah. Yeah. So once I got out of that, I was kind of like this, I already feel better because I'm making my own choices. I'm going to training because I want to go to training.
Restricting,
Yeah. So yeah, that made a huge difference.
Do you listen to podcasts or anything like that?
Yeah, I love the Howie Games because I just love listening to different athlete experiences. And just anyone that's on there, like I'll listen to. I listened a bit to the Resilience Project as well. I liked that. And then I just listened to random ones here and there.
You have one that stands out?
Yeah, what I mentioned about the Mojo Crow, I think that was on the Resilience Project. And they actually were talking to Travis Boak, who was talking about that link with like, it's like who you are. It's just a part of what you do. Like it doesn't define you. So I really liked that one. But actually I don't reckon I've read a book since school, and I read a book just over the last month, and it was How Bad Do You Want It?
Oh yeah, I've heard that.
Yeah, and it was about like going through the psychology with endurance athletes through different events. So they went through athletes that were marathon runners, Tour de France, like all these different things, and like the whole mind over muscle type thing, and that was really, really good. I really liked that too because it's like really relatable.
Yeah.
So
there is definitely something around that as well. Like you can train your mind to be able to put up or be able to handle more work than what your body can actually do.
Well, and that's what it was kind of saying. They were talking about, you know, like you might have this much capacity, and the next person might have this much capacity, But like if you can work that much of your capacity and they can only work that much of their or potential, say, like doesn't matter that they're better, but you can actually tap into more of like your potential than they can. So like that idea around it's like how like, it's literally how bad you want it. Every end of every chapter, it's like how bad you want it. You're like, yeah, true, okay, I get that. But yeah, that idea behind like it's just like all in your head, and you can relate to that at training because like that last rep that you don't want to do, it's like, well, getting to the start line and actually doing it, it's like that's your mind working over your body because your body feels wrecked, but like you just do it anyway. And that's kind of like, and like in a race situation when you're feeling really tired, but it's like, well, no, like you can't just stop. So like that whole keep pushing until you can't anymore, all of that.
Have you heard of David Goggins?
I don't think so.
Anyway, he comes up on this. I mentioned him a lot in this podcast. He came up with this 40% rule. He's a former Navy SEAL, but before that, he was severely overweight. Had to do all this training, and he to actually qualify to get into BUDS. He failed two times in BUDS. After each time, he ended up stacking on a whole bunch of weight, like just a lot of mental health issues and that sort of stuff. Third time, he ended up getting through, doing all of that. So he had all that big block of work and stuff he had to get through. And then while he was in the SEALs, he wanted to do this a charity run to make up and to do some work for. It was like a foundation that he wanted to run for, like a Navy SEAL foundation for someone who passed away. And to do the race, he had to do 100-mile. Had to run 100 miles in 24 hours was the kind of condition he had to do.
Yeah.
And he wasn't a runner, like he was like a bodybuilder, like big jack guy. And he was like, oh, I'm going to do it. How hard can it be? And then supposedly the day before he was doing like deadlifts and squats. So his legs were jacked up.
Oh my gosh.
And he ran and he got to about 60 miles and he was shot, like he was dead. Like he sat down on the chair, like wasn't prepared, didn't have any like drinks, didn't have any food, and just went on water and a chair to sit on. And supposedly his body went to like shock. He started to started to shit himself, started to do all this sort of stuff. And he was like, and then he had this switch in his mind that was like, oh, I'll just get up and I'll just start walking it to finish, because he started thinking about his mates and all that sort of stuff. He passed away. And then he said he walked for 10 miles and he was like, there's no way I'm going to get 100 miles in 24 hours. He was at whatever stage. I can't remember what stage in the time he was at. But he ended up jogging and then he ended up getting to a run. And he got to 100 miles, but he finished it in like 22 hours or whatever. But then his wife had to like pick him up and take him home. His body was going into shock. Like at this stage, he was like blood was coming out.
Oh my God,
it was wild. Anyway, he was in the bathtub at his home, and he rang the guy and he said, I did the 100 miles. And the guy goes back to him, goes, the whole idea of the race was to run 24 hours, not to 22, not 22 hours. Anyway, the whole point of the story was he was at 60 miles and he thought he was done. But he still ran an extra 40 miles after that. So he still had 40% left in the tank. Yep. And then even at that stage, he was in the bathtub, shitting out blood. He still wasn't dead. Like he still had, 5% or whatever. Yeah. Like he was pretty close to knocking on death's door.
Oh gosh. Yeah.
But yeah, there's that 40% rule. There's always that little bit more left in the tank.
Yeah, mind over matter, mind over muscle. Yeah, it's definitely a thing.
I definitely don't feel that though when I'm in the sauna. There's like 15 minutes left, and
you're like, no, I gotta get out.
Sauna's so bad. Do you ever do sauna or anything like that for recovery?
Oh, like sometimes we've done it, but it's more just like we'll just go on like a Sunday, like just whenever. Because I find it's too if you don't like replace the fluid that you lost. Like I can find it then like can affect you going into training. So if I look at my week, there's not really, I don't really want to do a sauna like before a running session. So yeah, it's just, and I can do it for like 20 minutes and then I'm like, I'm done. And especially like through summer, it's been so hot this summer that, we like sweat out on the track, that the last thing I want to do is go and sit in a sauna for like half an hour and sweat out more. So
I've been doing it after. There's a bit of science now coming out to say that if you do it after, like almost immediately after a real hard cardiovascular session, that actually helps you get fitter.
Yeah, the adaptation or something.
Keeps your heart rate up higher.
Yeah, okay,
and helps your cardiovascular system to adapt.
Yeah, right.
And obviously because it helps you sweat more too. So obviously in the heat, it makes you able to acclimatize and stay cool.
Yeah, I think I I think if I had one more available to me, I think I'd maybe use
it's
it. But you go to the one at the rec center and like with a bunch of like 50-year-old dudes, and you're like, it's the last place I want to go. But I think those like the saunas are like the infrared ones and stuff.
Yeah, that was good.
Yeah, they don't get as hot, I don't think. But
at
those places where they're like a bit more like fancy and like a bit cleaner than but with all this COVID stuff floating around at the moment, I think the sauna would be a bit of a germ pool. So
ice baths.
Yeah, so when like I used to do them a lot being at Waste because obviously they had a full recovery set up. So really like doing ice baths. But now not being there, it's like just go to the beach after training, just jumping in the water for a swim there. I try like I love the beach, so I always go. But I think sometimes I'll do like compression.
Okay.
But I don't know how much that works.
Do those boots?
We actually have a pair at work and I haven't used them, but we used to again use them at Waste quite a lot after a gym session. But again, it all just comes down to like the availability. I try and stretch. When I say try, I should stretch more than I do. But like foam rolling and trigger balling and getting massage or physio. I'm pretty lucky. I work at a physio clinic. So if I'm like got a free time or after a shift, I like just book in with one of the physios. So that's like the majority of my recovery is other people doing it for me. Like I'm like trying to get calf massages at home and stuff, but I'm not very successful with that. But just doing my own stretching. I've definitely gotten better at it. And this time of the year when it's like the back end of the season, I'm like, everything's sore. I wake up and I'm like, foam roller, can't get injured right now. So got the golf ball on the ground and there's so many
You don't have that little ball that has the vibrating, the massage like device?
No, I don't. I've seen it, and you can get the vibrating rollers as well. I don't know how beneficial they'd be. We've got a massage gun, but I don't know. It's like, if you're really, really tight, they're not that, like, unless you're really, really sore, they're not that good. Because I feel like it doesn't go hard enough. But sometimes I use it every now and then.
Yeah, I don't have one. I guess I always look at them like, it's so much, so expensive.
Yeah,
$100 for a gun.
Well, someone bought us one, so we're pretty happy with that. But
you can imagine how much, if it actually does make a difference or not, and how much just the normal sort of stuff, like obviously sleep, hydration, and your diet's going to be the big three.
And that's the thing, like we were really lucky at Waste because we had access to all those, to the recovery center. So we really utilized it. Whereas now it's like just making sure you're getting like that post-training nutrition in and going to the beach or having a good stretch after a session, doing even just a proper cool down is like just makes such a difference. But I think I don't do as much recovery now as I used to. Because again, it was drilled into us back then. But now I'm much better at like going home and instead of sitting on the couch for an hour, I'll like actually stretch every now and then, or roll or foam roll because I know that it makes me feel better.
How about your nutrition? Do you keep that quite simple? You don't try to make too fancy?
Yeah, well, I'm not like I tried to go vegetarian once. Like I really liked it, but just like it's not sustainable in terms of I ran out of ideas and I was literally eating spinach. Now me and my brother, it's quite funny. So me and my brother watch Game Changers together. And my brother's pretty easily influenced. But he's quite determined as well. So we watched Game Changers and we were like, let's go vegan. Like, let's do it. This is legit. We were like, this is legit. We're going to do it. So that was on like a Friday. And then for like a day, we like had a vegan dinner. And then the next day it was a Saturday and he went out, came home. Next morning I woke up, opened the fridge, there's a meat box in there. And then he got up and I was like, so how's your vegan going? And he's like, oh yeah, I think it's going. I was like, is that your meat box in the fridge? And he's like, oh yeah, I forgot. But
always happens when they get drunk. Vegans go back.
So but he actually went vegan for like longer than I could. Oh, wow. I couldn't be bothered, honestly. It was like it was too time consuming. And I just couldn't be bothered. But then I tried vegetarian, I really liked it. But now I just like I'm all about like a balanced diet. Like just food is fuel. That's how I think about it now. And now that I have a really good relationship with food, I'm like, I'm like, I'm going to eat all the carbs and all the bread and everything that I want. So like I don't have any, like I'm not on a low carb, and I drink black coffee just because I like it, not because I'm not trying to have carbs. So it's just one of those things. Like now I'll like, I had a raspberry white chocolate muffin the other day because I wanted one. And I don't do it all the time. So it becomes like it's a treat, but it's like
tastes better.
Yeah, it's way better than like a, piece of toast with, I don't know, Vegemite. So, but
raspberry white chocolate muffin sounds good.
From you got to go to IGA. They make the really good ones there. Yeah. But yeah, so my diet's pretty like boring and basic. Yeah. Like I don't eat anything special. Yeah.
I get the whole ethical reasoning behind people go like vegan and that sort of stuff, because I listened to a podcast with this one guy who used to work at one of the slaughterhouses, like not here in Australia, but over in I think it was over in the UK he worked, and he was talking about like how putrid and how inhumane it all is. Yeah. And then I was like, oh, now I kind of feel bad. You got to, because you also lose a bit of touch into how the whole process works. Like you go to Woolies and there's packaged chicken and it's like, everything is already there. You kind of lose touch into where it all comes from, like actual chicken, the whole process. So I actually I had to think about it a little bit. It's like, oh, should I go vegan or shouldn't I keep going? But like you can't really go once you know like the slaughterhouses and how it works. Like, kind of feel disgusting getting that stuff. So I made a decision. Didn't want to go vegan because I like meat. Yeah. So I thought, okay, so I'll actually go to a source of butcher now that actually is grass fed, grass finished, sort of stuff. So cows out roaming the paddock for however many days of its life and lives a pretty good life and just has one bad day. Yeah. And so the meat's a lot healthier too because it's not under stress. They're not actually compacted in cages the whole life. So but the funny thing is it's not as tender because the beef or the cows that are out roaming the paddock are actually using their muscles to work. Yeah, okay. So it's a leaner cut of beef most of the time. It's not as fatty and it's actually the meat is darker because they've actually been worked. Yeah, okay. I never thought of it. That's why kangaroo, if you haven't, kangaroo is very tough because they're so springy. Yeah. Very like athletic.
Yeah, right. Interesting. I never thought of it like that.
I love kangaroo. Kangaroo's great.
Yeah, right.
I've never had it?
Nah. I won't, nah. Like the idea of like kangaroo or like rabbit or nah.
Game meat's really good. It's really lean. Lean. It tastes a bit funny because it's very high in iron.
Yeah, okay.
That's why. Have you had liver? Have you had beef liver before?
No. See, I'm not like that kind of person. I'll eat everything, but I'm like, really I'm like, nah. I'm like, beef hearts, liver, no thank you. Just the name turns me off.
Kidney, but don't do that.
Nah, gross.
No. Tastes like actually tastes like piss.
Well, that's gross. See, I'll just eat normal stuff. None of that stuff. But
bone marrow is really nice. Have you had bone marrow?
I don't know. No, I don't think so.
If you cook the bone marrow and you put it on top of like garlic bread.
Yeah, okay.
It's really nice.
No, I haven't done that. Can't say I've done that. Yeah, but I guess that was I'm all for people being vegan and for those reasons and stuff. But I guess for me it was like I don't actually like what I eat now is working for me. I don't want to have to go vegan or like I don't want to go vegan and then have to take all these tablets to supplement all the things that I just could be eating. But that's just my opinion on it. And like I'm all for people doing it for the ethical reasons and things like that, or just out of pure choice, like good on them. But for me, I was like, if I can get all my nutrients from food,
makes it easier, right?
It's just easier. And
So you don't do any supplements? Like do you do protein?
I'll have protein powder after like a gym session on like a Saturday. I mean on like a Tuesday or something. Yep. But like if I go to the gym and come home and have dinner straight away, things like that. But yeah, I just, like all this, you got to know what's in your supplements, right? So sometimes it just gets too hard and I'd rather just not worry about making sure things are correct, like making sure my supplements are allowed by just not having them all together. So at the weekend just gone, we had state champs and I got drug tested and I was lucky I didn't but it still freaks you out. So my brother gets a lot of protein powders, so he'll tend to, and they're all ticked with like all the approved labels and stuff. So if I have any protein, it's from him, and I know that
does he know
right.
That you're stealing scoops?
Yeah, well, he just gave me a whole bag.
Oh, he gave you a bag.
So we don't live together anymore.
Oh, okay.
But he's like this is the old stuff. You can have it. And I'm like, thanks. But I find it like I'd rather just if I can get everything out of my food, then I can. If I have to, like sometimes I take iron supplements.
Okay.
If
Electrolytes?
anything, electrolytes. I do all that kind of stuff like Barocca, electrolytes, all of that. But I'd rather just be safe. Like especially if I don't need it. Like if I can function without it, then what's the point taking it? Just in case, you know.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Fair. So now you're working at Front Runner.
Yeah.
How long have you been there for?
I think since 2019, so a couple of years now. But I just started with like running coaching, so just one-on-one
So you do
running stuff.
Okay, your own track coach.
I'm not like with any of like the squads necessarily for the track stuff, but I'll do like one-on-ones or like small group stuff that people come to Front Runner and train with me if they're not in a group. But then they might start with me and then go into a group from me. So
how do you find the change in being an athlete and having a coach relationship and then being the coach and having an athlete?
Yeah, I love it. I think I really like coaching and seeing like the kids improve is like really like you're like, oh, I've done my job. So I like it. And I think having that relationship with like a kid, you can really like if they like and this is where it comes back to like me like talking about like loving your sport and loving what you do. Like just encouraging that because, you know, if they love it and they have passion for it, they're going to keep going. And if you can like bring like, cause I love running, I love my sport, I love coaching, I love seeing people doing well. So it's like if I can give that to someone and like help them kind of on their journey, cause I know like how influential your coach can be on like, you know, what you do, like whether you change events or something like that coach athlete relationship can be so influential on like the rest of your career. So if you have a good coach growing up, you kind of like you'll always remember that.
Yes.
So yeah.
That's cool. So coming up to the end of the podcast, I've got one question from myself. If you were to have dinner with any 4 people you could choose.
Oh my gosh.
Any like dead or alive, who would you pick?
Oh wow. I'm not very good at this stuff. You really put me on the spot here. Gosh, I actually like I'm a bit stuck.
Come, surely.
Okay, 4 people.
Anyone.
Jeez. I hope you can cut this out if I don't actually give you an answer.
No, we're going. I don't do any editing in the podcast.
Oh God, should have told me that before. I don't even know. So my like idol growing up, like was Kylie Wheeler.
Okay.
She's a heptathlete. She went to the Olympics and Commonwealth Games. Like, yeah, but I've been really lucky to like coach a little bit with her.
Oh, cool.
So like a lot of people that I've looked up to, like I've actually crossed paths with. I think it'd be really cool to have dinner with someone like, I don't know, like I love sport. So I love sports stars. I'd probably have like a real fangirl moment if I like had dinner with someone like Brett Lee or something, just because like he was like my favorite player because my family are cricket mad, and then there's me who's a runner. So the cricket was always on. So like he was always someone that I really liked watching. But then, yeah, I don't know. You've seriously put me on the spot. Like I honestly can't.
You're not leaving. We're not going.
Oh, we're going to be here a long time.
Maybe an hour and a half. So.
A third person. I think like Kathy Freeman.
Yep.
That'd be sick. And can I just have dinner with 3 people? I'm the 4th person.
No, it's 5. So the table's booked for 5.
Oh gosh.
You can't roll up with one.
Maybe they just didn't rock up because they didn't want to have dinner with me. 4th person. I don't know. Yeah, look.
Where would you go for dinner?
Where would we go? I don't know.
Would you cook?
No way.
No.
Go somewhere like real expensive, I reckon, if I'm not paying. But yeah, just somewhere like fancy, I reckon.
Would it be Australia? Would you go? Have you been traveling?
Yeah, so I've been over to Europe. We could go like some like Italian place in Europe, maybe, or something like Germany. Bread's good in Germany.
I bet.
Yeah.
I have good bread. Hot, nothing better than beats like warm sourdough.
Yeah.
And a little bit of butter, just as it melts.
So good.
Probably the best.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I think we're up to Uncle Frank's question time.
Oh gosh.
This might be even harder a question to ask.
Oh gosh.
Because it does ask some difficult questions. So take your pick and read it out loud.
Is there something that you've dreamed of doing for a long time? Why haven't you done it? Wow, Uncle Frank. Jeez.
People ask if Uncle Frank is real. Yes, I do have a real Uncle Frank.
Is he? Yes.
He's a real Uncle Frank. It's not a joke.
So is there something if you've dreamed of, why haven't you done it? Look, I'd say I think as an athlete, like, you know, the Olympics is the pinnacle of track and field. Like it's the pinnacle of your sport. So growing up, like my dream was always going to the Olympics. So I'd still like to think that dream is still achievable at some point. So Uncle Frank, I haven't done it because I'm not fast enough yet. But so
you can't be that hard on yourself.
Nah, so I think like it's always a goal. It's kind of I've detoured along my way. But I'd still like to think that potentially I could get there. Like I feel like if I didn't have the ambition to reach like that highest level, I probably wouldn't be doing it still. My kind of goal after pole vault was just to get back to the level that I was pole vaulting at, but in my running.
Yep.
So I guess I'm like almost there. I'm like, we got nationals in like a month or something like that. And I'm getting over east to do a comp before nationals as well. So I'm kind of like tracking in the right direction, providing that we keep going in the right direction. I'd like to think that, you know, one day I can actually get there. And yeah, I think like I said, I reckon if I didn't have high ambitions to be the best I could be, I wouldn't be still in the sport. And if I wasn't really determined and resilient, like I definitely wouldn't be in the sport if I didn't have resilience. But yeah, I think it's definitely a goal. And I think for a lot of people, if your sport is in the Olympics, it's definitely a goal and I'd love to get there. So sure. I'd like to think I'm on the right trajectory.
You are. Well, on behalf of myself and everyone who listens to the podcast, I'm sure we'll be rooting for you and hoping that within, I don't know, when's the next one? 2024?
2024. Yep.
In the future that we see you on the TV screens and
hopefully
your name and stuff. So all the best and thank you very much for coming on the podcast.
Right, thanks for having me.
Shout anyone out? Do you want to say thanks to anyone?
No, thanks for having me. I guess my boss will be happy that front runner got a plug. So I think that's all good.
Thank you. Again, I appreciate your time. So
no worries. Thank you.
All the best and thanks everyone.